Lisa Blake stood in line with 47 other new recruits on the metal platform of Training Station Delta 7. The morning air was cold and thin, making her breath come out in small white clouds that disappeared quickly in the artificial atmosphere. She pulled her standard-issue jacket tighter around her shoulders and tried not to shiver too obviously. The other recruits around her looked confident and ready, while she felt like she had made a terrible mistake. The training station floated in space between two moons, far from any planet where people lived. Through the clear dome overhead, she could see stars scattered across the black sky like tiny diamonds. It was beautiful but also scary. This place felt so far from the small farm in Montana where she had grown up. She missed the smell of earth and grass, the sound of wind through wheat fields, and the warmth of sun on her face. Colonel Frank Hayes walked slowly down the line of recruits, his heavy boots making loud sounds on the metal floor. He was a big man with gray hair cut very short and eyes that seemed to see everything. His uniform was perfect, with medals and patches that showed he had been fighting aliens for many years. When he stopped in front of each recruit, they stood straighter and tried to look like real soldiers. Lisa was near the end of the line, which gave her time to watch how the colonel looked at the others. He nodded when he saw Jake Morrison, a tall young man from Texas who had played football in college. Jake had muscles that showed through his uniform and a smile that made him look like he belonged here. The colonel also seemed pleased with Kelly Davis, a red-haired woman from Detroit who had fixed cars before joining the military. Kelly stood with her feet apart and her chin up like she was ready to fight anyone. Pete Williams was standing next to Lisa, and she could feel him shaking a little. He was thin and wore glasses, and he kept looking around nervously. He had been studying computers before the war started, and Lisa thought he looked more like a teacher than a soldier. At least she was not the only one who felt out of place. When Colonel Hayes finally reached Lisa, he stopped and looked at her for a long moment. She tried to stand straight like the others, but she was shorter than most of the recruits and her uniform felt too big. Her brown hair was tied back in a simple way, and she knew she looked ordinary compared to the others. The colonel's eyes moved from her face down to her hands and back up again. "Name," he said in a voice that was not loud but somehow filled the whole space around them. "Lisa Blake, sir," she answered, hoping her voice would not shake. "Where are you from, Blake?" "Montana, sir. My family has a small farm there." The colonel nodded once and moved on to Pete, but Lisa felt like those few seconds had lasted much longer. She had seen something in his eyes that she could not understand. It was not disappointment exactly, but maybe confusion, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. After he finished looking at all the recruits, Colonel Hayes stood in front of the group and began to speak. His voice carried easily across the platform without him having to shout. "You are here because humanity is fighting for its life," he said. "The Zephyrian Empire has been attacking our colonies for 3 years. They have better ships, better weapons, and they think they are better than us. They are wrong about that last part, but we have to prove it." Lisa had heard about the Zephyrians on the news, but hearing about them here made them feel more real and more dangerous. She tried to imagine what they looked like. These aliens who wanted to destroy all humans. The pictures she had seen showed tall, thin creatures with blue skin and large eyes, but she wondered if they were scarier in person. "Many of you will not make it through training," the colonel continued. "Those who do will go to fight on ships in planets where good people are dying every day. This is not a game. This is not like the movies. When you point a weapon at a Zephyrian, you better kill it because it will definitely try to kill you." The training began immediately. They were divided into groups of 8 and given rooms to share. Lisa ended up with Kelly, 2 other women she did not know yet, and 4 men including Jake and Pete. The room was small and basic, with metal beds and lockers for their things. Everything was gray or silver, and the lights were bright and cold. Their first day included physical training that left Lisa feeling sick and tired. She could barely do half the push-ups that Jake could do, and when they had to run around the station's track, she finished last by a long distance. Kelly and some of the others tried to encourage her, but she could see in their eyes that they thought she might not belong here. The combat training was even worse. They practiced with fake weapons that shot beams of light instead of real energy bolts. Lisa had never held any kind of gun before coming here, and it felt heavy and strange in her hands. When they practiced shooting at targets, her shots went everywhere except where she was aiming. The instructor, a tough woman named Sergeant Martinez, shook her head and told Lisa to try harder. During the tactical exercises, They had to work in teams to solve problems and complete missions on a computer. Lisa's team had to rescue pretend hostages from a building, while enemy forces tried to stop them. Jake took charge and gave everyone jobs to do, but Lisa struggled to understand the maps and the way military people talked about things. She made mistakes that got her team members pretend killed, and she could see their frustration growing. At dinner in the big eating hall, Lisa sat with Pete and listened to the other recruits talk about their progress. Many of them had military families or had trained with weapons before. Some had fought in smaller conflicts on colony worlds. Lisa realized that almost everyone here had some reason to be confident about becoming a soldier. She was the only one who seemed to have no special skills or experience. That night, lying on her narrow bed and listening to her roommates sleep, Lisa wondered why she had even tried to join the military. The truth was that she did not really know. Something had made her feel like she needed to be here, like this was important in a way she could not explain. But now, after one day of training, she felt foolish and out of place. She thought about her family's farm and wondered if her parents were worried about her. They had not wanted her to leave, but they had not tried to stop her either. Her father had looked at her strangely when she told them she was joining up, like he was seeing something in her that surprised him. Her mother had cried a little but had also seemed proud. Tomorrow would bring more training, more chances to fail, and more evidence that she did not belong here with these strong, confident people who seemed born to be soldiers. Lisa closed her eyes and tried to sleep, not knowing that her life was about to change in ways she could never imagine. 3 weeks into training, Lisa had become known as the recruit who tried hard but could not do anything right. She still finished last in runs, struggled with push-ups, and her shooting scores were among the worst in her group. The other recruits were kind to her, but she could see pity in their eyes. Even Pete, who was not very strong himself, could shoot better than she could. The morning was bright and clear when Sergeant Martinez led their group to the outdoor shooting range. This was different from the indoor range where they usually practiced. Here, real sky stretched overhead instead of a metal ceiling, and the targets were much farther away. Lisa could smell something like fresh air, even though she knew it was all artificial atmosphere created by the station's machines. Colonel Hayes was waiting at the range, which was unusual. He normally did not watch their regular training sessions. He stood near a table covered with different types of weapons, his hands behind his back and his face serious as always. Lisa wondered if someone was in trouble or if this was some kind of special test. "Today we work on long-distance shooting," Sergeant Martinez announced to the group. "You will each take turns with the plasma rifle, aiming at targets 500 meters away. This is much harder than what you have been doing, so do not expect to hit anything on your first tries." Lisa's stomach felt tight with worry. If she could not hit targets at normal distances, how could she possibly hit something 500 meters away? She watched as Jake went first, taking careful aim and firing 3 shots. One of them hit near the edge of the target, which made everyone cheer. Kelly did almost as well, and even Pete managed to hit the target once. When it was Lisa's turn, she walked slowly to the shooting line and picked up the plasma rifle. It felt just as heavy and awkward as always. She could barely see the target in the distance, just a small dark shape against the light background. She raised the weapon and tried to remember everything the instructors had taught her about breathing and aiming. Her 3 shots missed completely. She could not even see where they hit. The other recruits made encouraging sounds, but she knew they were just being nice. Sergeant Martinez wrote something on her clipboard and called the next person. Colonel Hayes stepped forward then, holding a different weapon. "Before we finish today, let me show you what real precision shooting looks like," he said. "This is not about hitting a target. This is about hitting exactly what you want to hit when you want to hit it." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a quarter, the old kind of coin that people had used on Earth before electronic money. Lisa had seen pictures of them in history books but never held a real one. The metal caught the artificial sunlight and gleamed silver. "Watch carefully," the colonel said. "In real combat, your targets will not stand still and wait for you to shoot them. They will move fast and you will have only one chance to stop them before they kill you or your friends." He held the quarter between his thumb and finger, then looked at the recruits with something that might have been a smile. "Of course, no human could hit something like this. We are not machines. We do not have perfect eyes or perfect hands. The best we can do is get close." The colonel flipped the quarter high into the air. It spun end over end, catching flashes of light as it turned. Lisa found herself watching it closely. seeing how it moved in a smooth arc against the blue sky. Something strange happened as she watched. Time seemed to slow down and she could see exactly where the coin would be at any moment during its flight. Without thinking, she took a step forward and raised her rifle. The weapon felt different in her hands now, lighter and more natural. She could feel where the coin was without looking, could sense its movement through the air like it was connected to her by an invisible string. Her finger squeezed the trigger. The plasma bolt shot out in a bright blue streak. It hit the quarter at the top of its arc, splitting it into two perfect halves that fell separately to the ground. The sound of the shot echoed across the range, followed by complete silence. Everyone stared at Lisa, then at the two pieces of metal lying on the ground, then back at Lisa. She was staring at her rifle like she had never seen it before, her mouth slightly open. She felt confused and surprised, like she had just watched someone else take that shot. "How did you do that?" Pete asked in a whisper. Lisa shook her head slowly. "I do not know. It just felt right. I could see where it needed to go." Colonel Hayes walked over to where the coin pieces had fallen. He picked them up and examined them carefully. Both pieces were exactly the same size, cut cleanly through the middle. He looked at Lisa with eyes that were no longer casual or amused. "Blake, step forward," he said in a voice that made everyone stand straighter. Lisa walked toward him on legs that felt unsteady. She was still holding the rifle and she could feel the other recruits watching her every move. The colonel held up the two pieces of the quarter so everyone could see them. "In 15 years of training soldiers, I have never seen anything like this," he said. "The mathematics alone make this shot nearly impossible. To hit a moving target that small at that distance with perfect accuracy requires calculation abilities that humans simply do not possess." He turned to look directly at Lisa. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" "I never learned, sir," Lisa said honestly. "I have never been good at shooting. You have seen my scores. This is the first time I have ever hit anything I was aiming at." "That is impossible," Sergeant Martinez said. "No one goes from missing stationary targets to making impossible shots like that." Colonel Hayes continued to stare at Lisa, and she felt like he was looking for something hidden inside her. "Blake, I want you to try that again. Martinez, throw your coin up." Sergeant Martinez looked uncertain but pulled a coin from her pocket. She threw it high into the air, and again Lisa felt that strange sensation of being able to track its movement perfectly. She raised the rifle and fired without really thinking about it. The coin split in half just like the first one. This time, several of the recruits took steps backward. Jake was shaking his head like he could not believe what he was seeing. Kelly was staring at Lisa with wide eyes and an expression that was half amazed and half worried. "Again," Colonel Hayes ordered, and this time he threw his own coin even higher and farther away. Lisa split it perfectly. The strange feeling was getting stronger now, like something inside her was waking up after being asleep for a long time. She could sense not just where the coin was, but where every person on the range was standing, how the wind was moving, even how the light was reflecting off different surfaces. "That is enough," the colonel said quickly. "Martinez, clear the range. Everyone except Blake. Return to your barracks immediately." The other recruits began to move away, talking quietly among themselves. Pete looked back at Lisa with concern, and she tried to give him a reassuring smile. But she did not feel reassured herself. Something was happening to her that she did not understand, and the look in Colonel Hayes' eyes suggested that it might not be a good thing. When they were alone on the range, the colonel walked close to Lisa and spoke in a low voice. "Blake, I need you to tell me the truth. Have you ever done anything like this before? Any kind of unusual shooting or accuracy with throwing things?" Lisa thought carefully. "No, sir. I mean, sometimes when I was little I could throw rocks at cans and hit them pretty well, but nothing like this. I have never even held a real weapon before coming here." "What about your family? Any of them in the military? Any special training or unusual abilities?" "No, sir. My parents are just farmers. They grow wheat and corn. My father was in the local guard when he was young, but he never saw any real fighting." Colonel Hayes picked up the pieces of all three coins and put them in his pocket. "Blake, I am going to ask you not to discuss what happened here today with anyone. Do not practice shooting when others are watching. Do not demonstrate any unusual abilities. Do you understand?" "No, sir," Lisa said honestly. "I do not understand any of this. What is happening to me?" The colonel was quiet for a long moment, looking out across the range toward the distant targets. "I do not know yet, but I intend to find out. Until then, you're going to continue with normal training as if nothing unusual happened. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Good. Return to your barracks and try to act normal. I have some calls to make. As Lisa walked back across the range, she could still feel that strange new awareness humming inside her. She could sense exactly where every object around her was located, could feel the movement of air currents, could even somehow detect the electronic signals from the station's communication equipment. Whatever had happened to her when she made that first impossible shot, it had changed something fundamental about the way she experienced the world. She tried to push the feeling down and act like the same ordinary farm girl who had arrived here 3 weeks ago, but she knew that girl was gone forever. Colonel Hayes sat alone in his office late that night, staring at a computer screen full of information about Lisa Blake. The file looked complete at first glance, with birth records, school transcripts, medical history, and family background. But the more he studied it, the more something felt wrong. Everything was there, but it all seemed too perfect, too clean. He had been making calls for hours, trying to verify the basic facts about his most puzzling recruit. The first call had been to the high school listed in her records. The principal there remembered Lisa Blake, or said he did, but when Hayes asked for specific details, the man became vague. Yes, she had been a student there. Yes, she had been quiet and average. No, nothing special about her stood out in his memory. The second call was to the town where Lisa claimed to grow up. The mayor knew the Blake family, he said, and confirmed they had a daughter who had joined the military. But when Hayes asked about neighbors or friends who might remember Lisa, the mayor could not think of anyone specific. It was as if she had lived there, but had somehow never made any real impression on anyone. Dr. Susan Clark knocked on his office door and entered without waiting for permission. She was carrying a medical tablet and looked tired but alert. Hayes had asked her to run every test she could think of on Lisa Blake, looking for anything that might explain what had happened at the shooting range. I have been examining Blake for 3 hours, Dr. Clark said, settling into the chair across from his desk. Physically, she appears completely normal. Heart rate, blood pressure, reflexes, muscle development, bone density. Everything falls within standard human ranges. What about her eyes? Hayes asked. Her vision? That is where things get interesting, the doctor replied, touching her tablet to bring up Lisa's test results. Her visual acuity is excellent, but not superhuman. 2015 vision, which is better than average but not extraordinary. However, when I did neural scans while she was looking at moving objects, I found unusual activity patterns. She turned the tablet so Hayes could see the brain scan images. These areas here control visual processing and predictive modeling. In Lisa, they show activity levels that are much higher than normal, almost like her brain is running calculations that most people cannot perform. Hayes studied the colorful brain images. Could this be natural? Some kind of genetic advantage? Possibly, but I have never seen patterns quite like these. It is almost as if part of her brain has been enhanced or modified in some way, but there are no signs of surgery or artificial implants. The colonel leaned back in his chair, thinking about the implications. What about her memory? Did you notice anything unusual there? Actually, yes. When I asked her about specific childhood memories, she could recall events and details clearly, but something about the way she described them felt rehearsed. Like she was remembering stories she had been told rather than experiences she had lived. Hayes felt a chill run down his spine. He had suspected something like this, but hearing it confirmed made the situation much more serious. Doctor, I need you to keep these results completely confidential. Do not put them in her official medical file, and do not discuss them with anyone else. Frank, what are you not telling me? What do you think is going on with this girl? Before Hayes could answer, his communication device chimed with an incoming priority message. The sender was listed as Earth Command Special Projects Division, a department he had never heard of. The message was brief and direct. Colonel Hayes, we understand you have questions about recruit Blake. We will arrive at your station tomorrow morning to discuss the situation. Do not take any action regarding this recruit until we arrive. Hayes showed the message to Dr. Clark, who read it with growing concern. Special Projects Division? I have never heard of them either. Neither have I. But apparently they know about Lisa. This confirms my suspicions that there is much more to her story than what appears in her official records. They were interrupted by a soft knock on the office door. Hayes called for whoever it was to enter, expecting to see one of his staff officers. Instead, Lisa Blake stepped into the room. still wearing her training uniform but looking nervous and uncertain. "Sir, I am sorry to bother you so late, but I could not sleep. I keep thinking about what happened today, and I am having strange dreams." Hayes gestured for her to sit down. "What kind of dreams, Blake?" Lisa sat on the edge of the chair and rubbed her temples like she had a headache. "I dream about a place with white walls and bright lights. There are machines there, and people in lab coats who are doing things to children. I can hear crying, but I cannot see who is crying." Dr. Clark and Hayes exchanged glances. "How long have you been having these dreams?" the doctor asked gently. "They started tonight after the shooting exercise, but they feel familiar somehow, like I have had them before but forgot about them." Lisa looked up at them with confused eyes. "In the dream, someone calls me by a number instead of my name. 17, they keep saying subject 17. The temperature in the room seemed to drop." Hayes felt pieces of a puzzle beginning to fit together, forming a picture he did not want to see. "Lisa, tell me more about your childhood. What is your earliest memory?" Lisa was quiet for a moment, concentrating. "I remember being 5 years old and helping my mother plant seeds in the garden. But now that I think about it, that memory feels strange, like I am watching it happen to someone else instead of remembering it happening to me." "What about before that? Anything from when you were very young?" "No, nothing clear. Just feelings and impressions. Sometimes I remember being afraid, but I do not know why." She paused and looked at both of them with growing worry. "Is something wrong with me? Am I sick?" Dr. Clark spoke in her most reassuring voice. "Lisa, we think you might have some kind of memory issue, possibly from an injury when you were young. It is nothing to be worried about. But we would like to run some more tests to help us understand what happened." "But what about the shooting? How was I able to do that?" Hayes decided to tell her part of the truth. "Some people have natural abilities that do not show up until they are under stress or in the right circumstances. It is possible that the military training environment triggered something that was always inside you." Lisa nodded slowly, but Hayes could see she was not entirely convinced. "Sir, there is something else. Since this afternoon, I have been able to sense things differently. I can tell where people are even when I cannot see them. I knew you two were in this office before I knocked, and I knew Dr. Clark was here, even though I did not see her come in." This was worse than Hayes had feared. Whatever had been done to Lisa, it was still happening. Her abilities were continuing to develop, which meant she was either becoming more dangerous or more valuable, depending on who was asking. "Lisa, I want you to go back to your room and try to get some sleep. Tomorrow we are going to have some visitors who might be able to help us understand what is happening to you. Until then, please do not demonstrate any unusual abilities where other people can see them." "Yes, sir." Lisa stood up but hesitated at the door. "Colonel Hayes, am I in trouble? Did I do something wrong?" "No, Blake, you have done nothing wrong. But you may be caught up in something much bigger than any of us realized." After Lisa left, Hayes and Dr. Clark sat in silence for several minutes. Finally, the doctor spoke. "Frank, I think that girl was part of some kind of experiment. The memory gaps, the enhanced abilities, the dreams about laboratories, it all points to artificial enhancement." "I agree. The question is whether it was legal or illegal and who was responsible for it." Hayes looked at the communication device where the message from Earth Command still glowed on the screen. "I have a feeling we are going to find out tomorrow. What if these visitors want to take her away?" Hayes thought about Lisa's confused, frightened face and felt a protective anger building in his chest. Then they had better have very good explanations and very legal authorizations. That girl is one of my soldiers now, and I do not hand over my people to anyone without knowing exactly what they plan to do with them. Dr. Clark smiled grimly. "Just remember that if Lisa really is some kind of enhanced human, the people who created her probably have resources and authority that we cannot match. Maybe. But they also have something to hide, or they would not have buried her identity and hidden her abilities. That gives us some leverage." Hayes spent the rest of the night reading through classified files and military regulations, looking for anything that might help him protect Lisa Blake from whatever was coming. He had the feeling that the next day would change everything for all of them, and he wanted to be as prepared as possible for the fight he sensed was approaching. The attack came without warning at 0600 hours, just as the morning training session was beginning. Lisa was on the physical training field with her group when the station's alarm systems began screaming. Red lights flashed across every surface, and the automated voice began repeating, Battle stations, battle stations. This is not a drill. 3 Zephyrian scout ships appeared out of nowhere, their sleek blue hulls reflecting the artificial starlight as they dropped out of hyperspace near the station. Lisa had seen pictures of alien ships in training materials, but seeing them in person was different. They moved with a fluid grace that seemed almost alive, and their weapons charged with an ominous purple glow. "Everyone to the emergency shelters," Sergeant Martinez shouted over the noise of the alarms. "Move, move, move!" The recruits began running toward the nearest shelter entrance, but Lisa found herself moving differently than the others. While they stumbled and looked around in panic, she moved with smooth efficiency, her body somehow knowing exactly where to go and how to avoid the obstacles in her path. The strange awareness that had awakened during the shooting exercise was now fully active, and she could sense the alien ships as clearly as if she were watching them on a screen. The first enemy plasma blast hit the station's outer hull, sending vibrations through the metal floors and walls. Lisa could feel the exact location of the impact and somehow knew that the next shot would target the power generators. Without thinking, she changed direction and ran toward the weapons storage area instead of the shelters. "Blake, where are you going?" Pete called after her, but she was already too far away to answer. The weapons storage was supposed to be locked during emergencies, but Lisa found that her hands knew exactly how to operate the security panel. Her fingers moved across the controls in a pattern she did not remember learning, and the heavy door slid open. Inside, racks of plasma rifles and heavy weapons lined the walls. She grabbed a portable plasma cannon, a weapon so large and heavy that it normally required 2 people to operate. In her hands, it felt perfectly balanced and natural. She could sense its power output, its targeting capabilities, and exactly how to modify its settings for maximum effectiveness against Zephyrian shields. Lisa ran to one of the station's external observation decks, where large windows provided a clear view of space. The 3 alien ships were circling the station like predators, their weapons firing in coordinated patterns designed to overwhelm the defensive systems. She could see the tactical logic of their attack and somehow knew exactly where each ship would be in the next few seconds. The plasma cannon's targeting system activated automatically when she shouldered the weapon. Instead of using the electronic scope, Lisa found herself aiming purely by instinct, her enhanced awareness tracking the movement of the nearest enemy ship with perfect precision. She squeezed the trigger. The plasma bolt shot across space in a brilliant streak of blue energy. It hit the Zephyrian ship exactly where Lisa had aimed, not at its heavily armored hull but at a small sensor array that controlled the ship's defensive systems. The alien vessel shuddered and began to drift as its shields failed and its weapons went offline. The second ship immediately changed its attack pattern, trying to locate the source of the unexpected threat. Lisa was already tracking its movement, her mind calculating trajectory and timing with mathematical precision that should have been impossible for a human brain. Her second shot disabled the ship's main engines, leaving it spinning helplessly. The third Zephyrian ship began to retreat, but Lisa could sense its path and knew exactly where to aim to intercept it. Her final shot struck the ship's hyperspace drive, just as it was attempting to jump away. The alien vessel disappeared in a flash of distorted light, but Lisa somehow knew it had been destroyed rather than escaped. In less than 3 minutes, she had single-handedly defeated an enemy force that should have been able to destroy the entire training station. She stood at the observation window, still holding the smoking plasma cannon, and tried to understand what had just happened. Colonel Hayes and a team of security officers arrived on the deck moments later, their weapons ready and their faces showing a mixture of relief and amazement. Hayes looked from the disabled alien ships floating in space to Lisa, standing calmly with the heavy weapon in her hands. "Blake, how did you know to come here? How did you know how to operate that cannon?" Lisa set the weapon down carefully and turned to face him. "I could feel where the ships were, sir. I could sense their weapons and their weak points. The cannon felt familiar, like I had used one before, but I know I have never seen anything like it." As she spoke, Lisa became aware that something was wrong inside her head. Sharp pain was building behind her eyes and images were flashing through her mind, memories that did not belong to the farm girl from Montana. She saw laboratories filled with complex equipment, scientists in white coats taking notes while children underwent various procedures, and rooms where young people practiced with advanced weapons under careful supervision. "Sir, I think I am remembering things," she said, pressing her hands against her temples as the pain intensified. There was a place with white walls and machines. They did things to us, changed us somehow. They made us better at fighting. Dr. Clark appeared in the doorway carrying her medical kit. She took one look at Lisa's pale, sweating face and immediately moved to help her.
She is having some kind of neurological episode.
We need to get her to the medical bay immediately. As they helped Lisa walk toward the medical section, Colonel Hayes received an urgent communication on his personal device. The message was from Earth Command Special Projects Division, and this time it was not polite or subtle. Colonel Hayes, Operative Blake's abilities have been activated ahead of schedule due to combat exposure. Our team is en route to retrieve her immediately. Do not attempt to interfere with this operation. Hayes showed the message to Dr. Clark as they settled Lisa onto an examination table in the medical bay. The young woman was conscious but obviously in pain, and her eyes kept unfocusing as if she were seeing things that were not there. They called her Operative Blake, Hayes said quietly, not Recruit Blake, and they knew her abilities would be activated by combat. Frank, this girl was turned into a weapon, Dr. Clark replied while checking Lisa's vital signs. Someone took a child and modified her brain and body to create a perfect soldier, then erased her memories and gave her a false identity. Lisa heard them talking and struggled to focus on their words. Colonel, there are others like me. I can remember some of them now. Children who were taken and changed. Some of them died during the procedures, but others survived. How many others, Lisa? I do not know exactly. Maybe 10, maybe 20. They gave us numbers instead of names. I was Subject 17. The pain in her head was getting worse, but the memories were becoming clearer. They taught us to use weapons, to fight aliens, to calculate impossible shots and predict enemy movements. Hayes felt a chill as he realized the implications. Lisa, where is this facility? Where did they do these things to you? I cannot remember clearly yet. Somewhere secret, hidden from the regular military. The people who ran it wore uniforms but no rank insignia. They said we were humanity's secret weapon against the Zephyrians. A new alarm began sounding throughout the station, but this time it was not indicating an alien attack. Hayes recognized the pattern as the signal for incoming priority transport. The Special Projects Division team was arriving, and they were coming to take Lisa away. Doctor, how long before she recovers from this memory episode? I do not know. Her brain is essentially rewiring itself as suppressed memories return. It could take hours or days. Hayes made a decision that he knew would probably end his military career. Then we are not going to be here when those people arrive. Lisa is one of my soldiers, and I do not hand over my people to anyone who cannot explain what they plan to do with them. He activated the station's communication system and sent a general message to all personnel. This is Colonel Hayes. We have a potential biological contamination in Medical Bay 2. All personnel are to evacuate to the secondary facility immediately. This is not a drill. As the station's crew began the evacuation procedures, Hayes and Dr. Clark prepared to move Lisa to a hidden location where they could protect her until they understood exactly what kind of conspiracy they had stumbled into. Lisa was trying to sit up despite her pain, and her eyes were becoming more focused and alert. Colonel, I think I remember something important, she said in a voice that sounded different, more confident and determined than before. The people who made me, who made all of us, they are not the good guys. We were not created to protect humanity. We were created to control it. Colonel Hayes led Lisa and Dr. Clark through maintenance tunnels that most people on the station did not know existed. These passages ran between the outer hull and the main living areas, providing access to critical systems and emergency escape routes. The air was cold and filled with the sound of humming machinery, but it was the safest place Hayes could think of while he figured out what to do next. Lisa was walking on her own now, though she still looked pale and shaky from the memory episode. The pain in her head had lessened, but more memories were returning constantly, filling in gaps in her understanding of who she really was. She remembered training sessions where children learned to handle weapons that could kill dozens of people, psychological conditioning designed to make them follow orders without question, and worst of all, the faces of other subjects who had not survived the enhancement procedures. Colonel, I need to contact someone I trust, Hayes said as they reached a hidden communication station built into the maintenance area. Captain Roy Adams works in Earth Intelligence, and he owes me some favors. If anyone can tell us what Project Lazarus really was, it will be him. Hayes activated the secure communication system and sent an encrypted message to his old friend. While they waited for a response, Dr. Clark continued to monitor Lisa's condition with a portable medical scanner. Her brain activity is still very high, the doctor reported. Whatever process is restoring her memories, it is putting tremendous stress on her neural pathways. We need to be careful not to push her too hard. Lisa was sitting on a metal crate staring at her hands like she had never seen them before. Doctor, I think my body was changed too, not just my mind. I feel stronger than I should, faster than normal people. When I held that plasma cannon earlier, it felt light even though I know it weighs over 40 pounds. Before Dr. Clark could respond, the communication system chimed with an incoming message. Captain Adams' face appeared on the small screen, and Hayes could see immediately that his friend was worried and frightened. Frank, where are you calling from? This channel is supposed to be completely secure, but I'm getting warnings that someone is trying to trace this signal. Roy, I need you to tell me everything you know about something called Project Lazarus. It involves enhanced human soldiers and possibly illegal experiments on children. Adams looked around nervously as if he expected someone to be listening. Frank, you have stumbled into something very dangerous. Project Lazarus was a black ops program that ran about 20 years ago. Officially, it was shut down after it was discovered that the scientists were conducting illegal experiments on kidnapped children. What kind of experiments? They were trying to create super soldiers by combining human DNA with genetic material captured from Zephyrian prisoners. The goal was to give humans enhanced physical and mental abilities that would let them fight aliens on equal terms. Lisa leaned forward, her face tight with concentration. What happened to the children who survived the experiments? Adams noticed her for the first time, and his expression became even more worried. Most of them died during the procedures. The few who survived were supposed to be eliminated when the project was shut down, but some of them disappeared. The official story was that they had been returned to their families, but the truth is that nobody knows what happened to them. Roy, this is Lisa Blake, one of my recruits. We believe she is one of the Lazarus survivors. Adams stared at Lisa through the screen, and she could see recognition in his eyes. Subject 17. I have seen your file, though I was not supposed to. You were one of the most successful subjects, but you were also one of the most dangerous. Dangerous how? Hayes asked. The Lazarus subjects were not just enhanced physically and mentally. They were also programmed with deep psychological conditioning that would activate under certain circumstances. They were designed to be sleeper agents who could be triggered to carry out specific missions. Lisa felt a chill run through her entire body. What kind of missions? Assassination, sabotage, anything that required superhuman abilities and complete loyalty. The problem was that some of the subjects began to resist their programming as they got older. That is why the project was supposedly shut down. Dr. Clark spoke up from where she was monitoring the medical scanners. Captain Adams, is it possible to remove this programming? Can Lisa be freed from whatever conditioning was done to her? I do not know. The techniques used in Project Lazarus were extremely advanced and completely classified. Even if the programming could be removed, the process might damage or destroy her enhanced abilities. Hayes was processing all of this information when another alarm began sounding throughout the station. This one was different from the evacuation signal he had triggered earlier. This was the alert for armed intruders on board. They are here, he said grimly. The Special Projects Division team has arrived, and they are not waiting for permission to come aboard. Adams heard the alarm through the communication link. Frank, you need to get out of there immediately. The people running the current version of Project Lazarus have resources and authority that go far beyond normal military channels. They can override almost any order or regulation. Current version? Lisa asked. You mean the project is still active? Officially, no. Unofficially, there are rumors that it never really stopped. Some people believe that enhanced subjects are still being created and deployed in secret operations against both alien and human targets. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the maintenance tunnels, along with voices giving orders in military tones. The search team was systematic and thorough, checking every possible hiding place as they moved through the station. Colonel Hayes, we know you are protecting Subject 17. A voice called out through speakers that must have been connected to the station's communication system. We are not here to hurt anyone, but the subject must be returned to our custody immediately. She is a valuable military asset that belongs to Earth Command. Hayes activated his own communication link to respond. This is Colonel Hayes. Commanding Officer of Training Station Delta 7. I do not recognize your authority to board my station or make demands about my personnel. You will provide proper authorization and explain your intentions, or you will leave immediately. The response came back immediately, cold and professional. Colonel, you are interfering with a classified operation that is vital to Earth security. Subject 17 was never supposed to be placed in regular military training. Her presence here is the result of an administrative error that we are here to correct. Lisa stood up from the crate, and Hayes could see that her posture and expression had changed. She looked more confident and alert, like a different person was emerging from inside the confused farm girl they had known. Colonel, they are not going to leave without me, she said in a voice that sounded older and more experienced than her years. And if I go with them, they will either reprogram me to be their weapon or eliminate me to protect their secrets. Dr. Clark checked her medical scanners again and showed the results to Hayes. Frank, her brain activity is off the charts. Whatever is happening to her, it is accelerating. The footsteps in the tunnels were getting closer, and Hayes could hear equipment being set up nearby. The search team was using advanced scanning devices to locate them, and it would only be a matter of minutes before they were found. Roy, can you help us get off this station? Hayes asked. Adams shook his head regretfully. I wish I could, but my hands are tied. The people behind Project Lazarus have connections at the highest levels of government and military command. If I try to help you, I will disappear just like the other people who have asked too many questions about this program. Lisa walked over to the communication screen and looked directly at Adams. Captain, how many other subjects are still alive? I do not know for certain, but intelligence estimates suggest there might be as many as 12 survivors scattered throughout human space. Most of them probably do not know what they really are, just like you did not know. Then we need to find them before these people do. If Project Lazarus is still active, they will try to reactivate all of the survivors or eliminate them. Hayes realized that Lisa was right. This was bigger than just protecting one enhanced soldier. There were other people like her who were probably living normal lives, unaware that they were walking. Weapons that could be activated at any time. The sound of cutting tools echoed through the maintenance tunnel as the search team began breaking through the sealed doors that Hayes had locked behind them. Time was running out, and they needed to make a decision about whether to surrender or fight people who were supposed to be on their side. The cutting tool stopped, and Hayes heard the distinctive sound of the sealed door being pulled away from its frame. Through the maintenance tunnel's ventilation system, he could smell the ozone scent of plasma cutters and hear multiple sets of footsteps moving with military precision. Lisa closed her eyes and seemed to be concentrating intensely. When she opened them again, Hayes saw something that made him take a step backward. Her eyes had changed color, shifting from brown to a bright blue that seemed to glow slightly in the dim tunnel lighting. There are 6 of them, she said in a voice that was completely calm and controlled. They are carrying neural disruptor devices designed to shut down enhanced nervous systems. They also have 3 other enhanced subjects with them, but those subjects are not in control of their own actions. How can you possibly know that? Dr. Clark whispered. I can sense their bioelectric signatures. It is one of the abilities they gave me, though I'm not sure they intended it to work this way. Lisa looked at Hayes with those strange, glowing eyes. Colonel, I need you to understand something. If I use my full capabilities to get us out of here, I will have to hurt people. Some of them might be innocent soldiers just following orders. Hayes thought about the young woman who had been struggling with basic training just a few days ago, and compared her to the confident, dangerous person standing before him now. Lisa, are you still you? Are you still in control of your own actions? I think so. The programming they installed is trying to activate, but my memories of being human are stronger. I remember growing up on the farm, even if those memories might be artificial. I remember caring about Pete and the other recruits. I do not want to hurt innocent people, but I also will not let them turn me into a weapon. The sound of approaching footsteps was getting louder. Hayes estimated they had less than a minute before the search team reached their location. He made a decision that he hoped he would not regret. Lisa, do whatever you have to do to get us out of here safely, but try to minimize casualties if possible. Lisa nodded and moved toward the tunnel entrance with fluid grace that seemed almost supernatural. Hayes and Dr. Clark followed at a distance, watching as she seemed to blend with the shadows despite the bright emergency lighting. The first enhanced subject appeared around the corner of the tunnel, moving with the same inhuman grace as Lisa, but with empty, lifeless eyes. Hayes recognized the look from soldiers who had been subjected to mental conditioning. This person was completely under external control. Lisa moved faster than Hayes thought was possible for a human being. She struck the controlled subject with precise efficiency, hitting pressure points that caused immediate unconsciousness without permanent damage. The unconscious person fell silently to the tunnel floor. 2 regular soldiers came next, carrying the neural disruptor devices that Lisa had somehow detected. She disarmed them with movements that were too quick to follow clearly, then used their own weapons to disable the electronic devices they had been carrying. "Sorry," she said to the confused soldiers before using pressure point strikes to render them unconscious as well. The remaining members of the search team were more cautious, taking defensive positions and calling for backup through their communication equipment. Lisa listened to their radio chatter for a moment, then turned back to Hayes and Dr. Clark. "They have more teams searching other parts of the station, and they have ships positioned to prevent anyone from leaving. We need to get to the shuttle bay, but we will have to fight our way through at least 12 more people." Hayes checked his sidearm and wished he had brought heavier weapons. "Can you handle that many opponents?" "The regular soldiers, yes. But there are 2 more enhanced subjects with the other teams, and they might be more resistant to the techniques I used on the first one." They moved through the maintenance tunnels toward the shuttle bay, with Lisa leading the way and somehow knowing exactly which passages to take and which areas to avoid. Hayes was amazed by her ability to navigate the complex tunnel system without any apparent reference to maps or previous experience. As they approached the shuttle bay level, Lisa suddenly stopped and held up her hand for silence. She tilted her head like she was listening to something only she could hear. "There are 4 people in the shuttle bay," she reported quietly. 2 enhanced subjects and 2 handlers with control devices. The enhanced subjects are standing guard, while the handlers are trying to sabotage the shuttles to prevent our escape. "Can you disable the control devices from here?" Lisa thought for a moment, then shook her head. "The devices have shielding that I cannot penetrate at this distance. I will have to get close enough to physically destroy them, which means fighting the enhanced subjects while they are still under control." Dr. Clark spoke up nervously. "Lisa, what happens if you fight other people like yourself? Are you evenly matched, or do you have advantages they do not?" "I do not know." Each subject was enhanced differently, depending on what abilities the scientists were trying to develop. Some might be stronger physically, others might have better reflexes or enhanced senses. The only advantage I have is that I'm in control of my own actions while they are not. Hayes looked through a ventilation grate that provided a view of the shuttle bay. He could see 2 figures standing motionless near the shuttle landing platforms, their posture and positioning clearly indicating they were the enhanced guards Lisa had detected. Near the shuttles themselves, 2 people in civilian clothes were working with electronic devices, probably installing the sabotage equipment. "Lisa, is there any way to break the control that is being used on the other subjects?" "Maybe. If I can destroy the control devices quickly enough, the other subjects might regain their free will. But if the process has been going on for too long, they might be too conditioned to recover immediately." She was quiet for a moment, and Hayes could see her weighing options and possibilities. When she looked up again, her glowing eyes seemed even brighter than before. "Colonel, I am going to try something that might be dangerous for all of us. I think I can use my enhanced nervous system to send an electrical overload through the tunnel's metal framework. If it works, it should disable all electronic devices in the shuttle bay, including the control devices. What is the risk? The electrical discharge might be powerful enough to injure or kill anyone who is touching metal when it happens. That includes me, since I will be the source of the discharge." Dr. Clark immediately protested. "Lisa, you could stop your own heart or cause severe brain damage. I cannot recommend that you try something so dangerous. Doctor, if we do not get off this station soon, they will capture me and reprogram me into a weapon that will be used to hurt innocent people. I would rather take the risk of dying as myself than live as someone else's tool." Hayes understood the choice she was facing, and he respected her decision even though it frightened him. "What do you need us to do?" "Get as far away from any metal surfaces as possible, and be ready to move fast when the power goes out. If this works, we will have maybe 30 seconds while everyone in the shuttle bay is recovering from the electrical shock." Lisa placed her hands against the metal wall of the tunnel and closed her eyes in concentration. Hayes could see her muscles tensing and could actually feel the air around them becoming charged with static electricity. The emergency lights began to flicker, and he heard electronic devices throughout the area making warning sounds. The discharge, when it came, was like a lightning bolt contained within the station's metal framework. Every light went out instantly, and Hayes heard the sound of people crying out in surprise and pain from the shuttle bay. Emergency power began kicking in a few seconds later, but by then Lisa was already moving. She kicked through the ventilation grate and dropped into the shuttle bay with her enhanced reflexes allowing her to land silently despite the distance. Hayes and Dr. Clark followed more carefully, using maintenance ladders to reach the bay floor. In the dim emergency lighting, Hayes could see that Lisa's plan had worked. The two enhanced subjects were shaking their heads like they were waking up from a deep sleep, and the handlers were lying unconscious near their destroyed electronic equipment. Lisa was moving between the shuttles, checking them for damage and preparing one for immediate departure. "Colonel, bring the other subjects," she called quietly. "If they are recovering their free will, we need to get them away from here before more control teams arrive." Hayes approached the two enhanced subjects cautiously, not sure if they were truly free or still potentially dangerous. The first one, a young man about Lisa's age, looked up at him with confused but alert eyes. "Where am I?" the young man asked. "The last thing I remember clearly was working in a machine shop on Titan Colony. Then everything gets fuzzy like I was dreaming for a long time." The second subject, a woman who appeared to be in her late 20s, was sitting up and looking around the shuttle bay with growing alarm. "This is not right. I am supposed to be teaching school on New Beijing. How did I get here, and why do I feel like I know how to kill people with my bare hands?" Lisa finished her preparations and waved for them to board the shuttle. "I will explain everything once we are away from here, but right now we need to leave before more teams arrive." As they hurried toward the shuttle, Hayes realized that their problems were the stolen shuttle moved through space at maximum speed. Its navigation system set for the outer rim colonies where Hayes hoped they could find refuge. Lisa sat in the pilot's seat, her enhanced senses allowing her to fly the ship with precision that amazed even Hayes, who had been piloting military vessels for 15 years. In the passenger area, Dr. Clark was examining the two rescued enhanced subjects. Alex Chen, the young man who remembered working in a machine shop, was struggling to understand what had happened to him. His hands kept moving with mechanical precision even when he was not consciously thinking about it, and he could identify the function of any piece of equipment just by looking at it. Maria Santos, the woman who had been a teacher, was having an even harder time adjusting. She found herself analyzing tactical situations and calculating optimal strategies for combat scenarios that her conscious mind had never encountered. The knowledge felt foreign and disturbing, like someone had planted military expertise directly into her brain. "Lisa, how many others are out there like us?" Alex asked as he watched her pilot the shuttle with inhuman skill. "I remember at least 12 subjects who survived the initial enhancement procedures," Lisa replied without taking her eyes off the navigation display. "But some of them might have died since then, either from complications or because they were eliminated when they became too difficult to control." Hayes was monitoring communication channels, listening for any signs that they were being pursued. So far, their escape seemed to have been successful, but he knew it was only a matter of time before Earth Command organized a proper search. "Colonel, I am picking up some interesting signals," Lisa said suddenly. "There is a mining station about 6 hours away that is sending out distress calls. The messages mention equipment malfunctions and workers acting strangely." Dr. Clark looked up from her medical examinations. "That could be another enhanced subject being activated. The stress of an emergency situation might trigger their abilities the same way combat triggered yours." Hayes made a decision. "Set course for the mining station. If there is another enhanced person there, we need to reach them before the Special Projects Division does." The mining station was called Deep Rock 7, and it orbited a dead planet rich in the rare metals needed for spaceship construction. When their shuttle arrived, Hayes could see immediately that something was wrong. Several pieces of heavy mining equipment were floating in space around the station, apparently thrown there by some tremendous force. Lisa docked their shuttle with unusual gentleness, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to compensate for the station's unstable rotation. As soon as they were aboard, they could hear the sound of metal being torn apart somewhere in the lower levels. "Stay behind me," Lisa warned as they moved through the station's corridors. If there is an enhanced subject here who is not in control of their abilities, they could be extremely dangerous. They found the station's crew huddled in the main control room looking terrified and confused. The station manager, a middle-aged woman named Captain Rodriguez, immediately recognized Hayes's military uniform. "Colonel, thank God you are here. One of our mechanics went crazy about 6 hours ago. Danny Wright was always a quiet guy. Never caused any trouble, but suddenly he started throwing around equipment that weighs several tons like it was made of paper." "Where is he now?" Hayes asked. "Locked in the lower mining section. We managed to seal the blast doors, but he is tearing the place apart. The strange thing is, he does not seem to be trying to hurt anyone. It is like he does not know his own strength." Lisa nodded knowingly. "His enhanced physical abilities activated, but without his memories returning, he does not understand what is happening to him. He is probably scared and confused." They made their way to the lower levels, following the sound of destruction. Through a reinforced window, they could see Danny Wright, a man in his early 30s who normally would have looked completely ordinary. Now he was unconsciously demonstrating strength that should have been impossible for a human being, lifting massive pieces of mining equipment and accidentally crushing them in his grip. "Danny," Lisa called through the communication system. "My name is Lisa, and I know what is happening to you. You are not going crazy, and you are not sick. You are like me." Danny stopped destroying equipment and looked toward the window where he could see them. His face showed relief mixed with confusion. "I do not understand what is wrong with me. I tried to fix a broken conveyor belt this morning, and I accidentally tore it in half. Then when I tried to move some cargo containers, I threw them through the station wall." "Danny, you were enhanced when you were a child. Your strength and other abilities were artificially increased. Then your memories were suppressed. The stress of working in a dangerous environment triggered your abilities to return." Lisa spent several minutes explaining what she knew about Project Lazarus while Danny gradually calmed down. When she felt it was safe, she had Captain Rodriguez open the blast doors so they could enter the lower section. Danny was sitting on the floor surrounded by twisted metal debris, looking at his hands like they belonged to someone else. "I remember some things now. A place with white walls and people in lab coats. They did things to us, painful things. And I remember other children, but some of them did not make it." Alex and Maria came forward to help Danny understand what had happened to all of them. As the three enhanced subjects compared their recovered memories, a clearer picture of Project Lazarus began to emerge. The facility had been hidden on a remote planet, staffed by scientists who answered to no official government agency. The children who were brought there had been taken from families who would not be missed. Orphans, children from destroyed colonies, anyone whose disappearance would not cause questions. "They told us we were being trained to save humanity," Maria said bitterly. "They said the Zephyrians were too advanced for normal humans to fight, and that we were the only hope for winning the war." "Maybe that part was true," Danny replied quietly. "I mean, Lisa did destroy those alien ships single-handedly. None of us could have done that before we were enhanced." Hayes was listening to their conversation while monitoring his communication equipment for signs of pursuit. What he heard made his blood run cold. "We have a problem. I am picking up military signals that suggest a large fleet is moving toward the Outer Rim colonies. It sounds like they are conducting a search and seizure operation." Lisa's enhanced hearing allowed her to detect details in the radio signals that Hayes had missed. "They are not just looking for us. They are systematically visiting every location where enhanced subjects might be living. They plan to activate or eliminate all of the survivors." Dr. Clark checked her medical scanner readings from all 4 enhanced subjects. "The activation process seems to be accelerating in all of you. Whatever triggers your abilities, proximity to each other appears to be strengthening the effect." "That might be intentional," Lisa said thoughtfully. "If we were designed to work as a team, our abilities might be enhanced when we are together. But it also means we are becoming more powerful than the people who created us intended." Alex had been quiet during most of this conversation, but now he spoke up with urgency in his voice. "I am remembering more about the facility. There were other projects besides the enhanced subjects. They were working on something they called the Control Protocol, a way to override our free will completely and permanently." "What do you mean?" Hayes asked. "They could turn us into perfect weapons with no personalities, no independent thoughts, no ability to resist orders. The scientists were afraid that as we got older, we might rebel against our programming. The Control Protocol was their solution." Maria added her own recovered memory. I remember overhearing them talk about activation triggers. They said that if we ever gathered together in a group, it would prove we had broken free of our conditioning. That was supposed to be the signal to implement the control protocol. The implications hit everyone at the same time. By rescuing other enhanced subjects and bringing them together, they had triggered the very response they were trying to avoid. The Special Projects Division was not just trying to recapture them. They were planning to permanently erase their personalities and turn them into mindless weapons. "How long do we have?" Hayes asked. Lisa was analyzing the radio signals with her enhanced cognitive abilities. "Based on the fleet movements and communication patterns, I estimate they will reach this sector within 18 hours. But there is something else. I am detecting signals that suggest they have other enhanced subjects with them, subjects who are already under the control protocol." "How many?" "At least 6, possibly more. They are being used as hunters to track down subjects like us who have retained their free will." Hayes realized they were facing an impossible situation. They were outnumbered by enemies who had the same enhanced abilities but none of the moral restraints. Even worse, those enemies were backed by the full resources of a military organization that officially did not exist. Danny stood up from the debris around him, his movements more controlled now that he understood his new kappa.